Welcome to my desert home. There you go. Click subscribe and hit the notification button, and maybe you'll be able to see me and visit me on a regular basis. Thank you. Well, this is what I do every morning is I study the Bible, and while I listen to J. Vernon McGee's, I follow him along. But I do more than that too. I also, when I not underline, but when I highlight something in blue, that's usually a reminder to myself, because I do this 2 or 3 times before moving on to another book. Oop. Anyhow, there you go. I like these 3: Jameson, Fawcett and Brown's, Albert Barnes, and there he is, Adam Clark. I used to look in Matthew Henry's a lot for explanation. These are, of course, these are commentaries, and I used to look at Matthew Henry a lot, but that's more like you've heard TLDR before. That's too long, didn't read. That's him. Too long, didn't read. So Adam Clark's pretty good. Albert Barnes, and then Jameson, Fawcett and Brown. They're kind of like a little bit too brief. Anyhow, let me go back to the Bible. I was in Galatians chapter 1. This is where Paul's writing about how he was under attack in Galatia, and he wrote to the Galatians, of course, defending himself against the people who were there in Galatia. Well, he wasn't, telling them what a bad preacher he was, that he was a false preacher, and they were trying to teach them a different gospel. Well, the gospel they were teaching him, of course, was that the Galatians, of course, Galatians were Gentiles. In fact, they were ethnically more like Gauls, which were the people who lived in France at that time. That's where they got the name Galatia. They were descended from a tribe of Gauls who had they were kind of like mercenary soldiers, and they wound up in Galatia, being granted some land there from somebody they were fighting for. So anyhow, they were Celtics. They were like the Irish, the Scotch. They were Celts, fighting people, feuding people. Anyhow, that's why they were mercenaries. But the Galatians were told by these preachers who came in there that they had to convert all the way to Judaism in order to be real Christians. They had to, get them circumcised and follow the Jewish laws. But Paul was trying to defend himself to them and telling them basically that he was not ordained by men, but he was ordained by God. I don't want to go too far into this. I just wanted to talk about Galatians 1, chapter 1, verse 15, where he says, "But when it pleased God, who separated me from my mother's womb and called me by his grace." Well, I was like, Well, I looked that up on my I keep wanting to say concordance, but that's not the right word. You get old and words kind of become a jumble in your mind sometimes. But commentaries. I looked that up in those 3 different commentaries, and each one alluded to that this meant that the Apostle Paul was called to be an apostle from his infancy, just like Jeremiah was called to be a prophet. But of course we know that Paul was a Pharisee and was very high in the Pharisee in the Jewish religion, and the hierarchy there. He was on his way up, so to speak, and he was a very smart man, and of course he was persecuting the church, and had letters authorizing him to arrest Christians in other places besides Judea. Once he arrested a bunch of Christians around Judea, of course, and he went to the high priest and said, "Well, why don't you go up to Damascus and persecute the rest of the Christians up there and send them back?" Of course, they were probably just arresting Jewish Christians, because there were very few Gentiles until Paul started preaching to Gentiles. Well, of course, he had a very dramatic conversion. Jesus Christ himself came to him in a vision, and in fact blinded him and knocked him off his donkey that he was riding, and said, "Why are you persecuting me?" And, well, you need to read that story. It's all through Acts. Paul repeats that story several times in the book of Acts. Of course, Luke recorded it. But it says here, "Who separated me from my mother's womb." Does that mean he was called from infancy to do the work he did as a Christian apostle? Yes, that is true. But it occurred to me that it could also mean that the Jewish religion, the Jewish social structure and everything about being a Jew and being religious to the extreme was his mother's womb. And he was separated from that in a very dramatic, and even you might call it violent way, when Jesus appeared to him and blinded him because Jesus was glowing so brightly and he was knocked off his donkey. Anyhow, you need to read the book of Acts seriously to get that story. But he was separated from his mother's womb, from the womb of Judaism, and called into grace. And he preached the gospel of grace over law. And I just thought that was strange that none of the commentaries that I looked at said that. Anyhow, I'm gonna go, and I don't know if I'll be putting this on a YouTube video or not, but it's very smoky outside, and I want to go do some work, some wheelbarrow rock spreading work, but I don't want to be breathing in all that smoke while I'm doing physical labor. Anyhow, I hope I can find some place to put this, and that somehow it will inspire someone to read the book of Acts, to read the book of Romans and Galatians. Those are very important books. Ooh, and the Gospel of John, definitely. Alrighty. Thank you. Goodbye.